Hello guys, and welcome back to Chapter 10, Paradiso, A Sea of Stars. Now before we get started, I have a few things to take care of. Things mostly redeeming this golden LP.
I was bored anyways. Let me go whip some things into shape for you.
Now the movie buffs among you may recognize this song in relation to what the weapon itself is referencing. But I'm not going to talk about that here, I'm talking about that in the extras video. But yes, that is Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries. Which, now that I think of it, is also referenced in the cutscene just before the Space Harrier section. But no, that wasn't the reason why I have this here. This is the reason. I've unlocked the Platinum Ticket. Now, the requirements to unlock the Platinum Ticket is that you need to earn 10 million Halos. Doesn't matter if you spend them, as long as you just earn them. But unfortunately for you guys, I'm not going to go through the Platinum Ticket today because that would take me a while. So I'll have to leave it to you guys to speculate, or just wait for me to do it, I suppose. But now that's out of the way, let's get started. Now, I have to admit I did kind of phone it in a bit with this fight here by using the Bracelet of Time. It's just that there are certain chapters, certain verses whose Platinum combo rank requirements are ridiculously high, and this is one of them. You would think it's not too hard to get it, but I don't know, sometimes I just don't feel like putting in the extra effort. But don't worry, I will try not to abuse the Bracelet of Time too much. So, let's change into the weapon which we're going to talk about today. Also, I'm kind of showing off Gaze of Despair, but not really, because you guys have probably already seen it a heap through my normal playthrough. But no, today we're going to focus purely on Kilgore / Slade. I'm just going to call it Kilgore throughout this time because I'm more used to calling it that. And yes, again I have changed the music in this chapter. Again, this is another piece that was on the soundtrack for the game, which, as far as I can tell, isn't used anywhere in the game. Which is kind of unfortunate because it's a pretty good piece, apart from the intro, which I really despise for some reason. It just sounds really not right. One thing I will say about this verse here, be careful about, how would you say, triggering those golem walls. Because when you trigger those and the cutscene where the wall sort of goes back to that gear, enemies can still attack you. I discovered that the hard way. On hard difficulty, by the way, this fight is pretty much the same. If you remember, the fight on normal just had Grace and Glory, whereas the hard and non-stop has Gracious and Glorious. There is definitely a lot more Gracious and Glorious in hard and non-stop. In fact, the only time you actually have to fight Gracious and Glorious in normal is... Actually, no, you don't ever have to fight them in normal. They're both optional fights that you can trigger by destroying their statues. One of which is in this chapter and the other one which is in Tower of Truth. but they're not really that hard to deal with. They're just faster versions of Grace and Glory. Don't give you witch time unless you parry. Now, oh my god, Kilgore. I love this weapon, and in fact it kind of breaks the game for me. I use it a lot in my Angel Slayer playthroughs. It destroys angels so quickly. And once you know how to use the enemy step off with Kilgore, it just, yeah, destroys things super quick. And yes, I did just run past a crow. For some reason they just like doing that to me. For some reason in this chapter, the crows don't show up in their specific spots. They are supposed to have a specific spot to show up. Like, for example, that one is supposed to show up on one of the gears, but for some reason just comes up a little bit off. What was I talking about? Kilgore, yes. You use it mostly on the feet. It's of course an integral part of the Kilgore glitch, which is pretty fun actually to use in Angel Slayer, but I try not to do it too much. What else? Kilgore is used mostly on the feet. You can use it on the hands, but it's really slow. The main draw with Kilgore is that it's very good for crowd control, particularly with enemies that are on fire. Oh yeah, we just did an Alfheim, no biggie. It's just a use Wicked Weaves when no one cares. But yes, main use for Kilgore on the hands is for crowd control. There is one unique combo on the hands, and on the feet as well actually. It's a punch punch pause kick. No, punch punch pause punch on the hands and kick kick pause kick on the feet. Both are incredibly slow and do lots of tonfa damage. Oh, I don't want to bore you guys with specifics in the combat system, but there's Wicked Weaves and then there's just regular attacks. Sometimes you see a punch or a kick. With Kilgore you get a little symbol which is like miniature versions of Kilgore. And the two special attacks for Kilgore do a lot of those specific attacks. I'm explaining this very poorly, but my point is that it does a lot of damage. It's so easy. That's why you save those claws for the end. Now I believe I mentioned that Kilgore was good for long distance. This is where it's particularly useful. Assuming that you have a good lock-on to whatever it is you're aiming at, you can pretty much just fight things from long range. Normally it's not an issue because you're just fighting regular angels and not miniature versions of bosses, but it works here too. So this is one example where you would use Kilgore on the hands. Another one is when you're fighting fire enemies. One particular instance that stands out to me is the Alfheim in the Tower to Truth chapter. It's normally a witch time disabled Alfheim and you're fighting fire enemies, but in non-stop it's just to defeat all enemies and they're still on fire. So what you can do there is use Kilgore on the hands for good crowd control and keeping a good distance away from them, as opposed to using Fire Dagger because enemies can parry that shit very easily. And here we have a crow, which is actually a little bit difficult to get. Definitely not one of the hardest to get, but it likes to run away very quickly for some reason. Oh yeah, one thing I don't show off in this video in particular is the perfect parry attack for Kilgore. I did mention a couple of videos ago that perfect parries are mostly just the stinger attacks, and Kilgore is no exception. You just shoot some rockets in the angels' faces. Makes me kind of wish that the skates got a perfect parry of some sort. It would have been interesting to see that. Hell, here's hoping that Bayonetta 2, because I probably am going to get it at some point, just not in the foreseeable future. I will play it at some point, I will probably LP it, who knows. It's early days. But one hopes that for Bayonetta 2 they allow any weapon to be equipped anywhere. God, these enemies. Seriously, fighting these guys is such a pain in the ass. Most of their attacks are very clearly telegraphed, except for one which I have a bit of trouble with, which is when they shoot out claw hands which fly around and grab you and restrain you. There is a slight audio cue for that one, but it's really hard to hear normally because you have music going on. But yes, fighting these guys with Jean is a pain in the butt because you can't get witch time very easily. Which is why I tend to spam Umbran Portal Kick? Yeah. Hell, I never use it normally. Oh wait, I was wrong. This actually is a forced fight, and in normal it is gracious and glorious. Totally forgot about that. It's been a while. I suppose fighting these guys when you're not used to them, it can be a bit disconcerting because you're so used to grace and glory who you can get witch time off, and then you get these guys who you can't get them off. So you're like, oh my god, what do I do? Easy stuff though. Oh yeah. There is really nothing special to say about this one, just maybe the first wave, which is full of deers and decorations. They don't really stick to the ground that much, as you can see. If you taunt them, they will become heavier and come down closer to you, but it still doesn't really help. Apart from these deers and decorations, it's pretty much the same dealio. You can use the bow weapons, kick attack to pretty much annihilate everything. And it's pretty easy to put distance between you and the angels. Anyway, one thing I haven't mentioned about Kilgore / Slade is the actual design of them. Most weapons in this game are actually based on a real-life counterpart. That's because the weapons designer in the game, who is Mineyuki Johnny Kodegawa, he's a bit of a gun nut, and he likes things to be based in reality a little bit. So, for starters, say Bayonetta's Scarborough Fair is based on the Derringer. I hope I'm saying that right. And John's All for One are based on the Parabellum pistol, aka the Luger. Again, I really hope I'm saying this right. I am by no means a gun nut. So, most guns in this game are based on real life counterparts. I'm not really sure about the shotguns, but I'm sure they look like just any old shotguns. Here I am showing my lack of gun knowledge, but yes, Kilgore / Slade are probably based on a mix of RPG-like recoilless artillery, and a rocket launcher. It's possible that a real-life counterpart is something called the AT-4, which is one of the most common light anti-tank weapons in the real world, built by Saab before Dynamics, a subsidiary of Saab Group, which is, as you may recognize, the same company that makes Swedish cars. Just for reference though, the most common anti-tank weapon is the RPG-7, which does show up in a lot of video games. And again, the crow eludes me. You may have seen it, but I did not see it when I was recording, but it was right in front of me when I finished that verse. But no, normally it does show up on a specific place on the platform, but it just like this chapter is just really lax, it seems. Oh, another thing about Kilgore. I did mention that they were good for crowd control. They kind of break Jean, actually. If you equip them on the hands and just shoot rockets at her, she'll never get close to you, basically. Because she will very rarely dodge them. I don't believe I ever realised what exactly I was doing in this verse. The fact that somehow fighting these angels is turning them into water so that you can walk on water to get up to that ledge. Never really thought about it too hard. But yes, basically the rocket launchers are ridiculously broken and make things a little bit too easy, to be honest. Them along with Durga should probably never be used. I don't know, chances are though I will probably finish the game using them though. Not sure on that yet. Same dealio as on normal. Trying to ground these guys is a bit of a bitch. You have to lock onto them and then try and Tetsuzenku them. I mean, you can try and do it other ways, but Tetsuzenku-ing them, god that's awkward, is the easiest way to deal with them. You can actually use the Witch Time statues in the middle there to boost your combo points if you're lacking in that department. But using them won't affect you adversely in any way. And that's that. I believe the time ranking on that verse is actually a little bit strict. If you're not careful, you can actually get a gold award for that, which kind of sucks, because if you try to reload it, you won't be able to get back there. But there's chapter 10. Nothing too interesting about it, to be honest. I mean, there were a lot of gracious and glorious fights, but nothing really that hard. Oh yes. We are so close to the best boss fight in the game, and I'm so excited for this, guys. But until then, keep watching, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.